Hello, everyone. Today we're diving into a topic that's gripping the world, the escalating US-China rivalry. These two superpowers are locked in a fierce competition, spanning economics, technology, security, and even ideology. This conflict isn't just a clash between nations, it's deeply affecting the global economy and our daily lives. Let's unpack why this rivalry has intensified, how it's playing out, and what's next, with a short, dramatic story to bring it to life. First, let's look at the roots of this conflict. Over the past 40 years, China's rapid economic growth has propelled it to become the world's second-largest economy. In 2023, China's GDP reached about 18 trillion, closing in on the US's $25 trillion through initiatives like the Belt and Road, advanced tech development, and military buildup. China has expanded its global influence. The US sees this as a challenge to its dominance. Tensions escalated in 2018 under the Trump administration with a trade war. The US imposed high tariffs on Chinese goods, and China retaliated, sparking trade friction. But this was never just about trade. Let's break down the key battlegrounds. First, economics. The US has criticized China's unfair trade practices, like intellectual property, theft, and market-distorting subsidies. In 2023, the U.S. slapped additional tariffs on Chinese steel, aluminum, and solar panels, while China hit back with retaliatory tariffs on U.S. agricultural and tech products. This trade war has shaken global supply chains. For example, South Korean semiconductor firms have seen sales in China drop due to U.S. sanctions, forcing them to seek alternative markets. Second, the technology war. This is the heart of the US-China conflict. The US has labeled Chinese tech giants like Huawei and ZTE as national security threats, blocking their 5G equipment and semiconductor exports. In 2022, the US pressured ASML, a semiconductor equipment maker, to halt exports of cutting-edge tech to China, and in 2023, it restricted high-performance chips critical for China's AI development. China has responded by pouring trillions of yuan into domestic semiconductor production, pushing for tech self-reliance but catching up to the US's technological edge. In the short term, looks tough. This tech war affects everything from smartphones to AI and electric vehicles in our daily lives. Here's a quick, dramatic story. In 2023, Mr. Wang, a small business owner in Guangdong, ran a factory producing electronic components for the U.S. market. But U.S. export controls cut off his supply of critical chips, forcing his factory to shut down. He had to lay off 200 workers and eventually closed his business. "My livelihood collapsed overnight, Mr. Wang said, his voice filled with frustration. His story is a snapshot of the reality faced by thousands of Chinese businesses, showing that this conflict isn't just about nations, it's shaking the lives of ordinary people. Third, security and military tensions. The South China Sea and Taiwan Strait are volatile flashpoints. China has built military bases on artificial islands in the South China Sea, while the U.S. conducts regular freedom of navigation operations with warships to counter them. The Taiwan issue is even more serious. China views Taiwan as its territory and emphasizes reunification, but the U.S. has ramped up arms, sales, and military support for Taiwan. In August 2023, the U.S. announced $500 million in military aid to Taiwan, and China responded with aircraft carrier drills. Experts warn that a small clash in these regions could spiral into a larger conflict. Now let's talk about social and ideological clashes. The U.S. has strongly criticized China's human rights issues, particularly in Xinjiang and Hong Kong's pro-democracy crackdowns. China, in turn, calls this interference in its domestic affairs. These tensions are fueling public sentiment. Anti-U.S. feelings are rising in China, while anti-China sentiment grows in the U.S. A 2023 poll showed over 80% of Americans view China as hostile. What does this mean for the global economy and our lives? First, global supply chains are being reshaped. Companies are moving production to Vietnam, India, or Mexico to reduce reliance on China, the so-called China Plus One strategy. But this raises costs, potentially pushing consumer prices up. For instance, smartphone and laptop prices could rise by 5 to 10%. Also, US-China tensions hinder global cooperation. Issues like climate change and pandemics require international collaboration, but this rivalry is holding it back. What's the outlook? In an optimistic scenario, both nations could sit down and ease trade and tech tensions. In November 2023, Presidents Xi Jinping and Biden met at the APEC summit, opening a small window for dialogue. But the pessimistic view is grim. A military clash over Taiwan or the South China Sea could threaten global economies and security. Experts predict that by 2025, tensions are more likely to sharpen than ease. So what's the lesson here? The US-China rivalry isn't just a fight between two giants, it's reshaping global economics and security. Ordinary people like Mr. Wong feel the ripple effects through rising prices, tech access, and job losses. This conflict is a game changer, and its impact reaches us all. This rivalry is likely to continue. Where it's headed and how we prepare are questions we need to ponder. That's all for today's video. If you have questions or thoughts, drop them in the comments. See you next time.